If you like the idea of hatching your own chickens using an incubator, but you find the whole subject a bit confusing, then watch on. In this video, we're going to try and demystify it. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the living room because it's windy outside today, so we thought we'd record inside. My name's Hugh, and together with my lovely wife Fiona, we run a small holding in rural Lincolnshire, and part of our operation is breeding and raising rare breed chickens. And in recent videos, we've been asked a number of questions about incubating. Things like, tell me all about incubators, which one should I buy, or what kind of humidity do I need in an incubator? And we thought it was about time we put together a series to explain using incubators to raise your own chicks. And in order to do that, we reached out to our great friends at Brinsea and said, look, we've got a number of incubators already, but we can't illustrate all the options that are available to customers. Can you help us out? And they did, which was really, really kind of them. They've also given us some offers to pass on to you. So if you're in the process of setting up your incubation, take a look in the description at the end of this video, because there'll be some offers there that will help you get a really good deal on the equipment that you want. Now, we're going to do this as a series so that it's digestible, and all I want to cover today is an overview of incubation. I'm going to cover three key topics. First one is, what are the critical factors that you need to worry about to get a really good hatch rate? The second area is, what equipment do you need to successfully hatch and raise chicks? And the third area is going to be, what ranges of incubators are out there and who are they suitable for? We'll cover that off today, and then we'll look in detail at individual incubators in subsequent videos of this series. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's talk about the critical success factors for successfully incubating chicks. And today we're really talking about hens, but these same factors will apply, although the parameters may be different for quail and ducks and geese, etc. So to hatch a chicken egg will take 21 days of incubation. And the first critical success factor we've got to look at is the freshness and the gentle handling of the eggs. Now, if a hen is trying to produce a clutch of eggs, she'll lay probably one egg a day, and she'll gradually build a clutch. Other hens may contribute to that clutch, but none of those eggs will develop until she sits on them and keeps them warm for an extended period. And that way they all hatch on the same day, at the same time, and when they're ready, she can lead them out to feed and drink without leaving others behind. So it's very important they develop equally. So one thing we learn from that is that eggs can stay viable for a time, at least 14 days. And the other one is, if they're just kept still and they're very gently handled, you'll get much better viability than if they're shaken and joggled, etc. But in order to incubate, you may have to buy eggs through the post, and that does carry some risk. If they're roughly handled, it can damage the viability. So if you can use your own eggs or buy them from someone local, you're likely to increase the success factor of hatch. Now let's talk about the parameters. Those eggs need to be kept warm because of the reasons that we just said, that in order to develop, they have to be kept warm for a period of time so they all hatch at the same time. And we will incubate our eggs at 37.5 degrees centigrade. Now your room is not at that temperature. It'll be warmer in the day, it'll be colder at the night, and sometimes sun shines on it. And you want to keep those eggs as consistently at the same temperature as you can. And the better your incubator is at compensating for the fluctuations of the room, the better your hatch rate is going to be. The next point is humidity. There are two things that can go wrong with humidity. If there isn't sufficient dryness around the egg, then liquid won't evaporate through the eggshell. Why does that matter? Well, as the egg develops, an air sac is created inside the shell, and that is the air that the chick will breathe during the hatching process. And if the air is too wet, that moisture can't evaporate, you can't create the air sac. On the other hand, if it is too dry, what's going to happen is the membrane inside the shell will shrink onto the chick, and that again will damage the likelihood of a successful hatch. So you have to keep your humidity at about the same level, the right level, to give yourself a successful hatch. And we use 50% humidity for the first 19 of the 21 days, and we up it at the end because during the hatch process, when the shell is broken open, we don't want the membrane to dry out and stick to the chick. So we go a little bit higher just at the end. And these are some of the advantages you can do with a good incubator. The next factor is turning the eggs. You'll often see a hen with her beak turning the eggs over and over. She's not doing that for her comfort when she sits on them. She's doing that so the chick doesn't stick to the side of the shell. So during an artificial incubation process, those eggs need to be turned. That can be done manually or it can be done automatically by some incubators, but it's vital that the eggs are regularly turned several times a day. The last thing that we need to worry about is what happens after hatch. After hatch, the chick will come out, it'll only have down feathers, it'll probably be quite wet and it needs to keep warm, it needs to fluff up, and then honestly it can't regulate its own body temperature for a number of weeks after hatch, and that's where mum comes in. And they'll nestle under her when they get a bit cold and she'll warm them up again. And in an artificial hatch, we need to provide that same facility. We used to do it with a heat lamp. These days, we do it with a brooder plate. And a good brooder plate can allow the chick that same freedom to go out, explore the world, but go underneath when it needs to be kept warm. So those are the critical success factors you need to think about to get good incubation. Equipment. The basics of incubation require 4 pieces of kit. The first one is clearly an incubator, and we'll come on to the different types and styles that you might want to think about in a moment. What are the other things you need? Well, after 7 days you can tell whether an egg is viable or not by shining a bright light through it. And if it is developing, you'll be able to see things like veins and organs starting to grow inside the shell. It's a fascinating thing. But the reason we do it is to actually find the eggs that aren't viable, because for another 14 days of heat on those eggs, they will start to decay inside the shell and they will give off gases, and those gases can affect the viability of the remaining eggs in the incubator. It's actually very important to remove eggs that either aren't developing or stop developing. So regular candling through the incubation process will definitely help your successful hatch rate. The best way of candling an egg is with a device called a candler. It's a bright light, it has a rubber cup fitted, it's designed to hold the egg securely. You can improvise with a bright torch. I've seen people do it just in their hand. I've done it just in my hand, and I'm going to be honest and say I have dropped an egg when trying to do candling with an improvised torch. I've got a friend who's done it by putting a piece of rubber tubing on the end of the torch that holds the egg a bit more securely. So you can build your own candler, but honestly, they're inexpensive, and a purpose-built candler will help you candle easily and safely. The thing you're going to need after that is something to keep those chicks warm, and we've touched on that. We used to do it with heat lamps. I think that a brooder plate is really the way to go these days. It uses less electricity, it's much more akin to being like a hen. In fact, people used to call brooder plates electronic hens. So what would I look for in one? Well, I would look for it being big enough that the chicks can develop underneath it as they grow. Bigger is better than smaller. I would look for it to be thermostatically controlled, and the thing I would definitely want is independently adjustable legs on my brooder plate, because I like to keep that brooder plate on an angle where the back of the brooder plate is the height of the chick lying down and the front of the brooder plate is the height of the chick standing up. And now obviously as the chick grows you'll have to raise and lower that plate, hence the adjustable legs, but also having them at different height means the chick can move backwards and forwards under the plate and find the right level of warmth for it. The last thing you're going to need is some way of containing your chicks. When you take them out of the incubator, where are you going to put them? We use a tin bath. It may sound odd, but it's a very useful bit of kit. It's easy to clean. We put shavings in the bottom, we put the brooder plate in, we put a feeder and a drinker in, and that keeps the chicks contained. They can't get lost from the brooder plate, they can't get underfoot, we can't accidentally kick the brooder plate over. It's a useful contained space. doesn't have to be a tin bath, obviously. One of the most imaginative ones I've ever seen was made out of a child's playpen. It was washable, it had mesh size, it could be folded up and put away when not in use. Very clever way of doing it. I've seen people make things to keep the chicks in, but either way, before they hatch, think through where you're going to keep them, because they're going to need to be kept with access to that brooder plate for a number of weeks. Let's talk incubators. Now, I'm going to review for you individual ranges of incubators and explain the pros and cons of each in subsequent videos. So that's not the intention today. What I want to talk to you about today, though, is the types of incubators that are on the market and the levels of automation and sophistication that different models can offer within those ranges. And perhaps that'll help you to start thinking about what's right for you. The smallest types of incubators, which generally handle sort of 7 to 24 eggs, are what I call dome incubators. They have a big, clear dome at the top. If they have automatic turning, it's generally done by turning a plate on the bottom of the incubator that sort of rolls the eggs around on the base of the incubator. They are brilliant if you want to see what's going on inside the incubator. They give the best view. So if you're doing this for educational purposes, for filming purposes, dome incubators are the way to go. The next size up, which generally cover 28 to 56 eggs, are what I call box incubators, and that's really what they are. Is a rectangular box. The egg sits in cradles inside that box, and they're generally automatically turned. And then there's a clear lid that goes over the top, so you can see some of what's going on in a box type incubator, but not nearly as much as you can with a dome type incubator. But they turn the eggs differently, and they are larger, so they suit maybe a small holder type operation. The level up from the box type incubators is cabinet incubators, and cabinet incubators are, often the size of a fridge or even bigger. They handle hundreds of eggs at a time. The eggs sit in trays for turning, and generally they're fully opaque. They're not designed for observation and filming. They're actually just designed to mass produce chicks. Now, we're going to look at both dome incubators and box incubators in subsequent videos. But it's also important to note that there are levels of sophistication within those ranges, and normally there's about 3 models. If you look at, for example, the smallest of the dome incubators, the base level model won't have automatic thermostatic control. It'll probably just have a thermometer inside, and you can adjust the heat output by turning a screw inside. But obviously then, to keep that temperature consistent, your room temperature also has to be quite consistent. Base level models won't have automatic turning, but you will have to go in several times a day and turn the eggs. And we mark the eggs with like an X on one side and an O on the other, so we can remember which ones we've actually turned, because it can get quite confusing after a while. And it certainly won't have automatic humidity control. But again, it may have several different areas inside that you can add water to, that you can manually adjust that humidity. As you move up the levels of sophistication in the models, and obviously as you move up to more advanced models, the price will go up. Usually the mid-range will add to you automatic turning. It'll usually give you a digital display, and it'll give you generally automatic temperature control. And the top of the range models will usually give you some form of automatic humidity control, using something like a capstan pump to drip water into the incubator when it detects that the humidity has fallen lower than the level you've set it. So within each of these things, what you need to really start to think about if you want an incubator is which of those ranges is right for you based on size and the amount of observation that you want to do, and what level of automation do you want to A, take out workload, and B, improve consistency in the incubation process. I don't want to go on much further today because I think it will become indigestible. I just wanted to give an overview of the process, the equipment, the setup and the success factors today. But it is important to say our great friends at Brinsea, when providing us with a lot of the equipment we needed to film different shots for this series, have also given us some offers that we can give to our viewers, and they're listed in the description down below. And if you buy some of the models that are suitable for home use, you'll get additional free products like candlers or extra cradles for larger eggs, etc. And they're only available, those offers, through us. So do take a look in the description. if you're ready to purchase now, but we will be doing more reviews of models within those ranges. One other thing I want to say is if you're going to get into incubation, do yourself a favour and buy this book, Hatching and Brooding Your Own Chicks by Gail Damrow. Our copy is horribly dog-eared. That's because I thumb through it really often. It's a fantastic book and it will give you really great detailed information that both helps to educate you and to improve your understanding of incubation and how to get the best possible results. If you've enjoyed today's video, can you spare us 5 seconds? Give us a thumbs up down below. If you've got specific questions about hatching and brooding chicks, please leave them for us in the comments and we'll try and answer them directly or include the answers in subsequent videos. And if you'd like to see those videos and everything else we do on our self-sufficient life, click on subscribe down there, hit the bell next to it. It's a totally free service, but you'll be told every time we upload a new video. For today, thanks for watching. Come back and see us soon. Take care.